Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back. It's been way too long since I've posted. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of just to give you a little bit of a background. The last couple of weeks was the holidays, and that's why it's been really quiet on my wall. And with that, my wife and I actually had a little bout with COVID, and thank God we are all doing much better. I want to thank all those people who called and who sent in their concerns and prayers and wishes. It's a difficult virus to beat, and even though it's been couple of almost a week and a half since I'm COVID free, I'm still feeling the after effects of it, the weakness, being winded very quickly, and so on and so forth. But I know that I am on the road to recovery, and I am excited to produce and teach and give more classes and more content this year. I want to thank all of you for listening. But today is Friday, and Fridays is generally when I do my Parsha stuff. I'm just letting you know that I'm moving it from Friday 1 p.m. to Thursdays at 1 p.m. People have complained and have asked very, very they've asked in a very nice way, that asking me if I could change the class to Thursday so they have more time to hear and prepare and absorb the lessons that I'm sharing. I want to just jump right in. This week's Parsha is Parashat Lech Lecha, and we've started. We're only three parshiot into the book of Genesis, and we've already gone through over 1,000 years of history. More than that, we've gone almost 2,000 years of history. Abraham is born in the year 1948 in the Hebrew calendar. That's 5,782. Currently, the calendar is 5,782. Avram was born in the year 1948. He is 54 years old when Noah dies. That's in 2004, 2006. And the Parsha just jumps right in. Very little introduction, which is interesting because we have to ask ourselves like this. The Parsha tells us about God speaking to Abraham. Vayomer Hashem el Abraham, Lech Lecha, me'artzecha, molotecha, mebeit avicha, el ha'aretz asher areka. I'm going to leave your house. There's no real mention about, who he is, what he's done. There's no backstory that's told about him. Whereas Noah, right, Parashat Noah, which is the Parsha before, you have a whole entire introduction. Eila told it Noah. This is the generation of Noah. Noah ish tzaddik tamim haya b'darotav. He was a righteous, perfect person in his generation. And it says, et b'darotav et Elohim hitalech Noach, and Noah walked with God. That's these are amazing accolades that are given to Noah, but almost zero mention at all to anyone here about Abraham. And the question is why? Why would Abraham, who is the patriarch, the founding father of monotheism, not get any kind of honorary mention? The only thing we hear about is, God told him to leave, go. That's how we're going to remember the father of monotheism. Abraham is the prince. He is the genius that helps find God on his own. And all we get is God says to Abraham that he should leave his home, his birthplace. He should leave his land, his family, and his house, the house of his father. To not even to a destination. Just go somewhere. Go for a walk. I'm not even telling you where to go. Just walk out the door and leave. And the question is why? So I'm going to share an answer with you, and this is going to be like the crux of the idea that I want to share with you. There's two ideas. There's many ideas here. We could spend hours just talking about what the words Lech Lecha mean. Go for yourself. Why not just Lech, just go? But it's not just go. It's Lech Lecha, or go to yourself. Because this is not just about a journey. It's about the ultimate journey, which is a journey of self-discovery. And in the journey of self-discovery, we don't have destinations. It's endless. But I want to kind of go back with you for a moment and share with you a midrash that speaks about Abraham's search. Now, remember, Abraham is born not in Israel, but he's born in Iraq, modern-day Iraq. His mother and father were part of the wealthy class of people, the patricians, and not the plebs. Most ancient communities were broken down to two classes: the elite, wealthy, that lived on top of the mountain; the poor, servant class that lived on the bottom of the mountain in the valley, the plebes. Abraham comes from this very wealthy family. His mother disagreed with the king's rules, which is that if you had There was a decree at the time that if any boy was born, they had to have been sacrificed to the god Moloch, which was the deity that the locals worshipped at the time. And she says no. She goes ahead, takes Abraham. This is before he's born. She's pregnant. She gives birth alone outside of the city and raises him on his own. She teaches him. She's the educator. She is the logical force, the power behind everything that I believe is Abraham. She sets him up. Sarah's fiery nature comes from her grandmother. Her name was Amtalia. She was a genius, brilliant woman. We don't know much about her because we know everything about whatever we do, we know through Abraham and through Sarah. But I suspect that so much of who Sarah was and Abraham came from her, much more so than Terach, Abraham's father, and Amtalia's husband. So now Abraham is looking for meaning, and he realizes that the world is lost, it's got off its rails, and is worshiping things that make absolutely no sense. And he comes to the final conclusion. He says, you know what? We live in a world of multiplicity. There's all sorts of things that are, around us. But I have a hard time believing, he says, that it's, multiple gods, a pantheon of gods all fighting with each other. And that's what we're seeing. He's like, there has to be a unifying principle that pulls everything together. He just knew that there was something instinctual that he figured out that changed everything about the world that we live in. You have to understand that if there was no Abraham, there's no monotheism. We would still be fighting pagan gods and worshiping all kinds of crazy things. So much of the Western values that we have, that whatever's really left of our Western values that are meaningful, came from the fact that Abraham discovered monotheism, and the monotheistic faith brought us to the morality that we have, so much of the good morals that we have today. So he's looking for God, and he's like, he's looking for something. He didn't know what to call it, and he's searching, and he finds a palace in the desert. And he finds this palace in the desert. This is based on a midrash, and the palace is on fire. And the fire is burning, but it's not consuming the palace. Very similar to the fire that Moses sees in the bush, but not just a bush, which is a natural, bushes and fire in the desert is a very natural occurrence. But seeing a palace on fire that's not being consumed by the fire is a whole other thing. And Abraham comes to the following conclusion. He says, you know what? If you find a palace in the desert, there must be a builder. There must be someone there. When we find order, structure in the universe, when we find order, structure in the world that we live in, the natural assumption is that there is a creator that kind of set things in motion, a builder, if you will. So he says, where is the builder, or who is the builder? And he's asking the question. Now, the question that I ask is, I understand Abraham bumping into the palace in the desert. I get that. But why does he need to see the fire? What's the fire about in the story? Right? What's the fire teaching us? This fire burning through this palace, but not consuming it. This is a very powerful idea. I saw this in Rav Moshe Shapiro's in the Parashat and Sefer Bereshit. And he says like this. He says, when God creates the world, it says, Bereshit bara Elukim. In the beginning, God created. And Rav Shapiro asked the question, what does the word bara mean? What does that creation, what was that initial creation? So you may think it's just the fabric of the universe, it's this space, it's time, it's all kinds of things that are measured in the material world, but that's not how he learns it. He learns it a little bit differently. This is what he says. He says that the word bara means that God created potential. And listen to how he explains it. This is a very deep idea, and definitely something that you will enjoy, I believe, thinking about over the weekend, over Shabbat. So he says like this. When we look at a candle and we look at the flame that is burning from the candle, right? That flame that you're seeing right now flickering, is it the same exact flame that was there before? Think about it for a minute. The answer is no. Let me explain. You see, the way fire works is that fire can only exist through the consumption of something else. It actually can only exist through the destruction of something else. That's how fire works. And therefore, every moment that the flame flickers, its flicker, its light, its power comes from the fact that something that is being destroyed at that moment. And therefore, the flame that we see at this moment, you could argue, is not the flame that was there before. And this is what Rabbi Moshe Shapiro says God created on day one. He creates a universe with potential. And therefore, we mistakenly look at time in a way of either linear time or cyclical time, whatever view of your time is, he says that's the wrong way to look at it. You have to see it in terms of potential. Now, let's explain what that means. Okay? Every moment that we are looking at the world around us, when you're looking at this screen and you're looking at the room outside, and you're looking out the window or whatever it is, wherever it is that you are, you're taking in your environment. You're just saying, okay, there's depth, there's space, and if I wait here long enough time will pass. The trees will move, the leaves are changing, the wind is blowing, and that's all time. But that's not what's happening. You see, an example of this is air. Air standing still is just air. But when air moves, it turns into wind. That's where it's expressing its potential. Every moment of life is an opportunity to express potential. The world around you at every moment is animated because it is expressing its potential to its fullest. God creates a universe where everything around you at every moment is expressing some form of energy. If you think of this, by the way, on a level of physics, this totally makes sense. Everything around you is vibrating, everything is moving, everything around you is alive, and everything is expressing its full potential. Now, a tree will grow how tall do trees grow? As tall as they can. Everything around us expresses its full potential. However, you and I are a little different. You see, we have the power of choosing not to express our full potential. We have the power of choosing to be lazy. We have the power of choosing to do what we should not be doing. We have the power of just of distracting ourselves. And I think this is exactly what Abraham saw. And I think it's beautiful that it's tied into his discovery of monotheism, looking at order, looking at a universe that has meaning and potential in it, not just in the universe, but potential that has yet to be expressed. You see, if he just saw the palace without the fire, then okay, here's a universe, it's on, it's around, and okay, you do what you can. That does not give me the responsibility of being an active player, participant in the game of life, right? If anything, the opposite. So here it is. This is the stadium I'm watching. But the fire is what teaches Abraham that we need to be playing the game. And I believe that's this is why this introduction to Abraham is so fitting. It says, "Vayomer Hashem el Avraham, Lech Lecha." You think it's all about destinations. You think it's all about getting to the end game. And it's not. It's about the process. The process of recognizing the potential in every single moment and allowing ourselves to express our full potential in that moment. That's all there is. This is how you achieve greatness. Talk about personal greatness. We talk about personal development. The way in which I like to think of it now is a 1% rule. My goal is to be 1% better than whoever I was the day before. 1%. What are you doing today that's 1% different than yesterday? Think about that. If every day you're working on only 1%, don't allow yourself to be static. When you are standing still, you are not a flame. A flame expresses its fullest potential. Every second, every moment, it is fighting to consume so that it could give you the light, the heat, the warmth that you need. That was the flame that was in Abraham. God says to him, Lech Lecha me'artzecha u'molatecha u'mebeit avicha. There's a 3-step process here. Leave everything you know behind about the world, about the universe. Stop thinking about things. It's not, I am who I am, I'm stuck, this is my circumstance, this is what was. Forget that. This week's Parashat, the Torah lesson of this week is that you, my friends, have infinite potential. And the question is, what are you doing to tap into that potential? That's what this is. Why are we talking about Abraham in the most beautiful way without giving him the Ish Tzaddik, Haya, Tamim B'Dorotav, Anochi Talechi Hashem? We don't even bother telling us any of those things because those are nice things that are chitzoni, external. But as Jews, we understand that the most beautiful things about the world are pnimi, are inner things, inner workings. That is where real greatness comes from, not the superficial, external things about the world around us. So when it's telling us that God says to Abraham, Lech Lecha, he's not talking about he's not talking about a physical journey measured in miles, measured in distance. He's talking about the inner journey of understanding who you are and what you're capable of. We're here, okay, 3,500 years, 3,500 years after Abraham came into the world and taught us all the things that he taught us about chesed, kindness, and love, and giving to the world, that the world around us is designed to give humanity the opportunity to make it better. That humanity was created so that we could improve the lives of the people on the planet and improve the planet and the environment that we're in. That's not going to happen in a world where we're complaining about our resources. There's always going to be a limited amount of resources. There's no such thing as infinite amount of resources. But when you and I tap into this concept of process, that there's a process, a potential that needs to be brought into the world, when we actually tap into that process as a finite being, you and I, my friends, connect to the infinite. This is how we become infinite. This is how we tap into God, the mind of God, the soul of God, however you want to understand it. But it requires effort on our part. It requires a journey, an inner journey that only you can go on. The universe was created for you and for you alone. How are you going to take the gifts of potential and time and space and use it to turn every single moment as an expression of the greatest parts of who you are? This is why the Parashat, I believe, begins like this. It doesn't have to tell me that he's ish tamim tzaddik haya b'torotav. I don't need to know about the great things that he may have accomplished on the outside. And then remember, the pasuk over there says b'dorotav, in his generation. Abraham isn't just a guy going on a journey. His journey leads him to I think this is one of the most amazing verses written in the Torah itself. It says like this. It says, V'aseh lecha, you do this. If you're actually able to get onto this journey and conquer understanding the self, expressing your fullest potential, this is what's going to happen to you. Ready? V'aseh lecha legoy gadol. I'm going to make you into a great nation. V'avarachcha, I'm going to bless you. V'gad lecha shemech v'yebaruch baracha. I'm going to make your name great, and you will be a blessing. What do you mean you'll be a blessing? I don't want to be the blessing. I want to be receiving the blessing. No. The goal isn't to be the one that's taking. I want to be the source of all blessing in the world. My friends, our blessings, our good mazal, our good fortune comes from our choices. When we choose to live a life where we express the best of who we are, we become the source of blessing to the world. Barech, the shorish of the word bracha, means to give. Whoever blesses you will be blessed. And whoever curses you will be cursed. And the whole planet will be blessed through your families on this earth. And then this is it. This is the moment. We're going to get this is the greatest accolade. V'yelech Abraham ka'asher diber alav Hashem. And he walks the path that God has set out for him. That, my friends, is the greatest blessing. Knowing that you are living a life in sync with the will of God, in sync with actualizing your potential, of allowing your soul to express the best parts of who you are. Parashat Lech Lecha is about beginnings. We're starting, it always starts in the beginning of the fall. We're getting ready for the darkness of winter, my friends. It's so easy to lose all the work that we put into during the high holidays and kind of lose ourselves to the darkness of winter. Challenging times, I believe, are coming. And that whatever challenges we've had in the last 18 months with COVID, I believe are going to get more challenging with disruptions and supply chains and whatnot. We're living in interesting times. This is the time where we need to double down on asking ourselves, what does it mean to be the best version of us? And then fighting relentlessly, using our time wisely to actualize that potential so that you and I can be part of the infinite game of achieving our full potential and bringing blessing into the world, or being a blessing for the world. Thank you so much for listening. I hope the ideas were meaningful and that you're able to implement them, and not only implement them, but live them, be the blessing. Shabbat Shalom Barak. Looking forward to continuing the conversation. Have an amazing week. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.